I'm with an absolute legend, Tim Sanders. You've just spoken at EQ Leadership Labs as our keynote.
Yeah,
and
it was exciting. It was awesome. Thank you for the opportunity, buddy.
Yeah, no, my pleasure, and thank you for coming. You know, as we know, we don't even need to go into it, but this was an amazing moment for me to have you here, and I'm a massive fan of just your whole approach to work and everything you're saying. And
well, thank you.
You know, and I think like I wanted to just kind of use this opportunity to get in deep on some of the points you made in the presentation. And one was that really struck me is like, culture is the conversation we're having about how we're going to do things.
Yep.
And if we don't have that conversation,
yep.
We end up with default culture.
Every person for themselves.
Yeah, and what's interesting is the way that so often the doing things seems obvious to people.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
They don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
So how do you get people, you know, what do you say? How do you get people to have that conversation?
So again, culture is a conversation led by leaders, punctuated by action, about how we do things here successfully.
Yeah.
Okay? And in many situations, successfully means we accomplish a goal within our value set. Okay? So that's where values come into play in determining a culture. Values shape how success is defined and how things should be prioritized. Right?
Yeah.
So success for us is we value fairness, and we value transparency, and we value fun. I'm going to pick those three out.
Yeah.
Well, if the end outcome of our outputs is not fun and fair and meeting those values, then it's not successful. But at the end of the day, culture is a conversation led by leaders about how we do things successfully. And Jonathan, the secret to building a culture is cadence.
Right. Yeah.
Cadence. So
I can see
I
that.
tell people, like, every time you have a conversation with a team member, you need to tell them this is how things are done here successfully based on what we value. And it needs to happen in every interaction. Every conversation is a coaching opportunity to talk more about our culture. And it should be like every conversation. So I'll give you an example. So at Zappos.
Yeah.
I know it's an overused example for culture, but I know Tony. He's a great guy. They do have a strong culture. They had an amazing exit with Amazon because of the strength of the culture and how it cascaded to an amazing customer experience, right?
Yeah.
So when you think about how that happened, they have a call center, okay?
Yeah.
So the supervisor for a 5-person call center team talks about culture at least 2 times a day to her team somehow, 2 times a day. The divisional boss that manages that supervisor layer talks about culture to that layer 4 times a day, okay? The VP layer that manages everything like operations and customer call center and those people are talking about culture 8 times a day.
Okay.
Tony Hsieh is talking about culture 8 times an hour. So cadence has to cascade up.
Right.
So everybody's got to talk about culture, but the higher you are in an organization, the more you need to be talking about it. In fact, that needs to be all you talk about.
Yeah.
Right? Because here's the way to think about it. Culture is like the operating system of an organization. It creates the collective intuition about what we should do even when the boss is not around. That's why a strong culture delivers predictable results, especially for the customer, right? And to put that software together, it needs to be constantly updated and verified and checked for bugs.
Yeah.
You got to compile, right? There's all and so that's what cadence is. And the last thing I'd say is it's about the hiring cycle. You got to hire people that fit your culture and fire those that don't. You've got to onboard people where they have a crystal clear understanding of how things are done here and what we value. You've got to give them development resources to live those values, and you have to make all of your reward and succession decisions based on that culture, and that's a great way to add action to the conversation.
Right, okay. And, you know, for kind of entrepreneurs who aren't at the kind of, 50-person company yet, you made a really good point as well, which is, you can slip into default culture at 12 people, and you can slip into silos and centers of excellence just at 12 people, and that can cause, friction and fractures in the company.
Friction and fractures.
How do we, but then at the same time, when you're a very small organization, it can seem like if you talk about how the work's getting done, you're wasting time not getting the work done.
Right.
So how do you kind of get that going?
So, silos are built. It's a human reaction. They're underground, hardened from the outside world, protect resources, right? And they're built because we give people budgets and objectives. That's what happens. So at some point in your startup, you start telling somebody, Jonathan, this is all the headcount you get, this is all the money you get, and by the way, these are your key performance indicators you've got to hit.
Yeah.
You're going to build a silo.
Right.
You can't help it. I've induced scarcity. And so that's why we build the silos, but what you can do is you can support all the informal networks that connect those silos. You can encourage, if not demand, collaboration. That needs to be a key part of your cultural value set. When we get stuck, we go wide. We go grab somebody. We recruit them to be part of the team, because those collaboration projects are, you can have your cake and eat it.
Yeah.
So you get all the efficiency and scale of the silos that organize vertical centers of excellence, but if you connect them all, you also become good at problem solving, and you don't get stuck becoming a big old dumb company at 100 employees.
Yeah.
Like it happens to people. It happens all the time.
Right. And another thing you said in your keynote was that just really like hit home for me was rapid problem solving.
That's the secret to success.
Yeah. And then but there's something about rapid problem solving which kind of takes a lot of trust from everyone in the system. How do you kind of get people to sort of give that trust in order to solve those problems?
So a couple of ideas here. You only get back the trust you give.
Right.
So I think that when we
I love that.
give people autonomy and we help our employees co-author their job
Okay.
by giving them small choices,
Yeah.
it makes a huge difference to the trust they give you back, because it's very reciprocal, okay? But in the world of collaboration, when you're trying to solve a problem, there's two things I want you to think about. There is no big idea, there's only the next play.
Okay.
The next little thing we're going to do to get us 1 inch closer, we need to lower our expectations around genius, okay? And the second thing is, we don't need consensus, okay?
Yeah.
I just want to know, can everybody live with it? I know you're not excited about the idea. I know that you thought your idea was better, but what's building here is a strong case to go this way for the next play. Tell us, can you live with it? If you can't live with it, what minor modification can help you? You'd be surprised how you can get unstuck when you're in consensus mindset that everybody's going to vote on it and be happy about it. It ain't going to work.
I love that. I call those enlightened dictatorships.
Yes,
so
I think
we
it's
run
perfect.
it like that.
It's an enlightened dictatorship, but you show respect to people. You value your voice. You don't crush them with the myth of the expert. You never
Yes.
tell a person you don't know what you're talking about. Ideas have assumptions. And so the assumptions are what we challenge, not the person, not the idea. You can find out amazing things if you have that philosophy.
Yeah. And that also speaks to this idea of like having a kind of high tolerance of failure in a way. Like
Yeah.
there's no getting it wrong.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna, there's not necessarily a right way of doing it. There's just do it as best you can.
Listen, sometimes when you're trying to deal with a complex issue, it's like whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
You go, bam, another one pops up. And so, your next play may be wrong, okay? But doing nothing is wronger, right? So business is messy.
Yeah.
And for all the good stuff you do that you get a lot of credit for, there's a lot of ugly little stuff. But what is unforgivable is inaction.
I love that. And, there's collaboration within an organization, but also there's collaboration between organizations. Do you have any sort of advice about that? Can we still be as honest with each other?
Yeah, sure. I mean, a competitor's not going to beat you because you told them something. Competitor's going to beat you because their talent did something.
Right.
Okay?
They were motivated.
I call them competimates, right? So like when you're talking to people that are technically competitors, there's a book called Co-opetition. I love this book. It says there's competitors, you should think of them as competimates.
Yeah.
There's complementers, their success lifts your success. A lot of suppliers fall into that category. In St. Louis, a lot of other startups that aren't even in your space are complementers. As they succeed and get a big exit, more funding comes into the community. You need to look around for those competimates and those complementers. You have to be transparent, you have to be honest, but you've got to create a win-win for their involvement, okay?
Yeah.
Whatever that is, win-win or no deal, it's a Stephen Covey special. I think that's the secret.
Brilliant. And on that note, I think, you've got to get a plane. We've just had amazing conversation.
It's been an amazing day, buddy.
Yeah, it's been amazing, and it's been amazing having you.
Thank you, man. I love you, man. You're a good guy. Congratulations on another success and your litany of successful miracles against long odds.
Yeah, and the lesson for St. Louis is, we've got to all work together to identify our competitor mates, We are cooperative. I can't do it. And you know, yeah, find our complementers, and that's what we're trying to do on EQ. And you've helped me kind of get that message out there.
Right.
Is that
let's
we can
try to
build
find
this
the things we
together.
share in common instead of the things that make us different. And I mean that in the greatest way.
Yeah.
And we practice it in society. The world is so divided right now. But it starts here in St. Louis with our ability to find the commonalities and the things we cherish in others and trust them if we want them to trust us back. Right? J. Cole,
Thank
man.
you.
Legends can coexist.